this session, I wrote 95 words. For this session, I wrote 26 words. Let's talk about some more books. I've been a little behind on my book updates, so there are a lot in this bunch. And we'll start with Ex Libris. I found this at Goodwill on Friday, and this caught my eye because on the front it says that it'll remind readers of The Name of the Rose, and I've been reading that and loving that, so I thought this was a very, very timely find. But also, I have been seeing this book pop up just on my Pinterest randomly, so I found that very, very synchronous. Also, I just love stories with libraries and secret stories behind libraries and adventures in them, so very excited to get into this. On another Goodwill find, I found A Little Course in Dreams. I thought it was a really cute little book that, and of course I did my spot checks too, but I thought it was a really cute little book that could kind of illuminate some more on the dream world. I also found this at Goodwill, and though this is completely not in my genre or style, I've been wanting to branch out more outside of my preferences, and I wanted to make my readership more experiential in that, you know, wherever I go places and I happen upon a book, I'd like to be that person who can read it and still create value out of it. So this caught my eye, and I knew it wasn't going to be 100% like my flavor, but I thought, it being a hardback, it being from Goodwill, that I would give this book a chance by annotating it. So I've been doing that. I've got quite a few dog ears, and you know, I'm at 166 pages, and actually, to show you, this is the tarot bookmark that I pulled for this book, and it's pretty apt. It is really a Queen of Swords type of book. But as I've been annotating this book, I'm really appreciating what the author is trying to do in this book. I think so far it is a very compassionate portrayal of the service industry or the hospitality industry. And you know, I find it interesting that there is this juxtaposition of the ideal of this swanky new hotel, and then behind the scenes you see that perfection become realized in the lives of the people of the staff. It is also a cutting portrayal on the immoral lives of people, but it's also what makes us human. So that said, her style is written in a very carefree manner. It's not in any ways a literary masterpiece, but the story is there, and I think the carefree manner is intentionally done so as to not come across as judgmental of the lives of the people she writes about. I think superficially this comes across as gossipy, but the more I read it, the more I can tell that it was written with compassion for the hospitality industry. And you know, in her dedication, she dedicates it to the entire staff of the Nantucket Hotel with love and gratitude. So I am glad I'm giving this book a chance. It's not in my lane at all, but it's still enjoyable, and I'm getting practice with my annotations in this. I should show you the other tarot bookmarks that I put in my books. So for Ex Libris, I pulled the Fool. And for A Little Course in Dreams, Queen of Cups. So next one on my Goodwill find from recently. Ooh, I found this helpful guidebook, How to Get Your Husband to Talk to You. And my husband and I are coming on 3 years of marriage. And that said, communication is always a work in progress, and that goes both ways. So even though I feel that I can articulate myself well generally, especially like in face-to-face dynamics, it doesn't always mean that I am speaking my husband's language. And that's something that I've recently realized where, I can work on my ways of communication as well. So found this book at Goodwill. I wasn't even looking for it, but I started reading a little bit, and it's really helpful. I think in the back it says, actually no, this is not what I wanted to mention. So there was a chapter that kind of spot checked, and it's kind of like, no, it was in the intro. Yeah, it was in the intro, where it's like, marriage is like going to a completely foreign island and then meeting the locals there. And it's nice if you have, like, if you can speak the language already, but if you don't, you do have to learn that language or use a translator. That said, I don't want to use a translator, so I have to learn the language of the island that I have come upon, and that's why I picked up this book. And the card I pulled for this book is the 10 of Swords, which I also think is apt. This book was from a separate Goodwill journey, and I found a copy of My Cousin Rachel. I was going back and forth with this for a while. I do absolutely love Rebecca, and this is a little bit darker, I think, but I saw this at Goodwill and I was like, you know what, actually, I do really want to read this. So I got this. I haven't pulled any cards for this yet. I only did that for my newest batch, but that's My Cousin Rachel. I also found this book, A Year in Provence, and it just seems like a very feel-good, vibey. It starts with, this is how the book starts. January, the year began with lunch. So that tells you what this book is about. I'll read it back a little bit. So in this witty and warm-hearted account, Peter Mayle tells what it is like to realize a long-cherished dream and actually move into a 200-year-old farmhouse in the remote country of the Luberon with his wife and 2 large dogs. He endures January's frosty mistral as it comes howling down the Rhone Valley, discovers the secrets of goat racing through the middle of town, and delights in the glorious regional cuisine. A Year in Provence transports us into all the earthy pleasures of provençal life, and lets us live vicariously at a tempo governed by seasons, not by days. So, very, very interested in this book. Okay, then I found a really beautiful copy of The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar, by Junot Diaz. And I have seen this book a lot, and I've been going back and forth on it. And then finally I decided, you know what, I think this could be a book that also kind of stretches my scope and reach as well. So I picked that up. And then we have some local bookstore finds. My husband and I found this book called Morphed. I am not saying that correctly. And I mean, it's a really cute square book. It is by Breitenbach. And so far my husband started this and he's saying it's very dreamy, but very dark. Yeah, but I sampled it. It's very beautiful, poetic writing, and I am excited to read this. Actually, on the back, it says, Mouroir is a complex, demanding, haunting book. It stands as a brief for the act of writing as an exercise of imagination and will, the blend between fantasy and reality, the lyric intensity of a narrative consciousness which refuses to be pinned down to one identity or a single mode of existence. So I think that really captures what the vibe is for this book. I cringe at my poor pronunciation of the title, but we also found I always say his name wrong, but Vladimir Nabokov, Invitation to a Beheading. And this is also outside of my realm, but I would like to read this book. So, but I'll have to be in like the right headspace for it for sure. Then we found this really old version of Point Counterpoint by Aldous Huxley. It's like super old, and yeah, it's got that like, yeah, that very old feel to it. So, all right, I'm gonna try to flip through these books a little bit quickly because this video is getting really long. I got another Umberto Eco book. This is Chronicles of a Liquid Society, and this is a collection of essays. And I really, really like the way that Umberto Eco thinks. So there's that. And then I have The Island of the Day Before, also by Umberto Eco. I mean, he is really, really fun for me. So I have that, and it's a pretty big book. Oh, I just love Eco so much. We have The Historian. This is a book that I came across the library like earlier this year. Maybe it was last year. No, it was earlier this year. And I read a little bit and then I put it back and I was like, maybe it's not my vibe. But then I just kept thinking about it like all year long. So I finally just bought my own copy and I'm excited for it. I also picked up my own copy of it's called Arctic Dreams by Barry Lopez. And I've been really curious about life in the Arctic territory. So got this book. I also picked up The Joke by Milan Kundera. When I was in high school, Milan Kundera was my absolute favorite author, and The Unbearable Lightness of Being was such a thematic book for me in my mid-teens to 20s. And that said, I tried to reread The Unbearable Lightness of Being again. When I was younger, I read that a million times over. But I tried to reread it again, and it was just so dark and heavy for me. I was like, I don't think I can reread this anymore. My headspace is just not there. But I thought this could be a little bit of lighter fare than The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I picked up the complete works of Oscar Wilde. He's got quite the mind, and I think he would be a great study for me. So I got the collection. And then I picked up The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. I sampled her other books, and they're not really for me, but I thought The Dutch House could be a great place for me to at least try her writing, especially since she's well known. And I did sample this book before I purchased it, and I do like the style, and I do like the themes that she has in this book. So there's that. Then I purchased Grove by Esther Kinsky. It is nature writing. It is so beautiful. I mean, if you like nature writing. If you don't, it's gonna be very boring and kind of pointless. But if you love nature writing, it's so freaking beautiful. I love this. And then I found another book on Greek myths by, that's Sybil Fur, Robert Graves. And then lastly, I need to take a breath for this one. I'm so surprised, but I ended up getting into the Mortal Instruments series. This is the first book, City of Bones. And here's the thing, I watched the shows and the movie a little bit, but they're campy and they're kind of not great. But it was always curious to me how there was such a huge fan base for Mortal Instruments, and then finally decided to check out the books. And I started reading it digitally, and it is so good. Cassandra Clare is truly the queen of fantasy, and I ended up getting a box set off of eBay for super cheap, and I've been reading this, and this is like my new Harry Potter, like, kind of book. Like, I love Harry Potter, I will always reread, and I can tell that this is also gonna be like that kind of book for me. So I'm so happy about this. Like, damn, it's so good. The pacing, the atmosphere, just the storyline, like, wow. So I'm very excited about this, and that's all that I have for my books. I do have to get to my writing, and I might do that later today. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to get settled into the day, but I wanted to add one more note about this book. The writing style is immaculate and tight. Like, it is so well written, and I am so impressed. So I'm gonna end the book talk here when I get to my writing, and I will update you when I have that done. For this session, I wrote 40 words. That is it for this vlog, and I will see you in the next one.